there's some skill that comes with writing Christian fiction that I don't like when they preach at you through Christian fiction. You know what
That's
I'm
fair.
saying?
Yeah.
And when you read Christian fiction, if the book is Christian fiction, there's going to be at least one reviewer that said it's too preachy, and we all know what that means. That means a non-believer has gotten hold of a Christian fiction book and it mentioned the word God without a profanity behind it. That's what that review means. Yeah. So, but I have read a few books, Christian fiction books, where I was like, do you have to preach at me? Yeah. There's a skill to twining faith elements into a book in a way,
a fiction book,
that it's pleasing, Ho,
ho, ho. Welcome to the Bookish Introverts podcast. Join host Amazon bestselling author Brett Nelson and avid reader Melanie Dyer as they dive in to review books they've read, then chat with the amazing authors behind them. Quiet minds, big bookshelves. You don't want to miss it.
Hey everyone, it's Brett and Melanie back with another Bookish podcast. And today we are discussing Autumn by the Sea by Melissa Tagg.
Tagg. Tagg.
Her name is almost like mine.
Almost.
It's Melissa, not Melanie.
Yeah, almost like yours. Yeah. So I'll tell a little bit about her. Before we do, though, guess what?
Oh, no. What?
It's your birthday!
No. It's not my birthday. My birthday was 2 days ago.
Melanie had a birthday this week. So
I did.
If you're on YouTube, everybody drop into the comments and tell Melanie happy birthday. I was going to go and get some cupcake this morning and get you something for your birthday, but we're doing it earlier than usual, so
it's okay.
I would have had to roll out of bed earlier.
You got me Sonic.
So hey, we have our caffeine, and that's the most important. So yeah, I got my Diet Coke, and you got your sweet tea.
I did.
Yeah. So happy birthday!
Well, thank you.
You and hubby went out of town, enjoyed a couple
of days. We had fun.
Yeah.
What
all y'all do?
We looked at Christmas lights and went shopping and went to a show. It was fun.
And you didn't have to go to work for a couple of days. So I mean,
have to go to work.
That's nice. Always a plus in my
Although
book.
It was really funny because I worked from home the Friday before. And of course I had my phone forwarded to my cell. So we were eating breakfast Tuesday morning and my phone rang and it was a vendor.
Oh no.
I was like, I can't help you. My phone's forwarded and I didn't think about it.
You forward your phones when you're on vacation leave?
No, because I was working from home Friday and so my phone was forwarded to my cell.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And since I wasn't in the office between Friday and Monday, I wasn't there to unforward it.
Okay,
so
gotcha. Yeah.
I just gave her my supervisor's name and number. I was like, she can help you. I'm sorry. She's like, no, I'm sorry.
So like, was there where you guys went? Was there like a lot of Christmas lights out already?
Oh yeah.
Were there?
Okay. Oh yeah.
Good.
Everywhere.
See, I'm finally starting to see a few creep up here in town, and I love it. I'm like, do you have people on your like social media, Facebook, that are like, it's not even Thanksgiving, you're skipping Thanksgiving? Like, does that just make you want to start slapping people?
I always have people like that,
Don't be a Grinch.
To each their own.
To each their own, but I'm like, I can celebrate Christmas. I can celebrate Thanksgiving with a Christmas tree in the corner. So hush.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're skipping Thanksgiving.
I did see a sign that said, y'all don't need to be complaining about us playing Christmas music because if there were more Thanksgiving bangers, we wouldn't be in this.
Exactly. So those of you who are complaining about the Christmas music, write some Thanksgiving bangers and maybe things will change. Be the change you want to see.
Absolutely.
So, and I was so excited because one of the local radio stations, my Aunt Tonda, actually, she texted me, and it was kind of a sarcastic-y kind of a text for her because she was like, 107.9 is already playing 24-hour Christmas music. I was like, thanks for telling me.
They started the day after Halloween.
They did.
Done.
And that's like usually they'll start about a week before Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
sometimes usually closer to Thanksgiving.
Yeah, the day after Halloween, the radio station I usually listen to, they were playing some commercials, so I tend to go searching when that happens. And, came across 107.9 and I was like, Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Already?
Yeah.
Y'all are pretty quick on the draw this time.
Yeah. It was way earlier than usual.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, back in the day, like they've been doing 24-hour Christmas music for years.
Yeah.
So back years ago when I first discovered it, like they would start Christmas music like after, like I think it was Thanksgiving night, and then they would go all the way through New Year's. But then they switched and they started playing it like a week or two before Thanksgiving, and then they stop it on Christmas Day. I'm like, do we have to stop it on Christmas Day? Like, let us have it through New Year's.
Yeah, carry it forward.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
or write some New Year's bangers.
Exactly. Write some New Year's bangers. So, anyway, of course, there are a lot of people out there that are like, okay, Christmas is over. Let's stop the Christmas music. So, everybody has their own taste in what they want. So,
That's true.
But what I want is the most important. Always. Always. If the world would just remember that, it would be nice. So let's work on that, universe.
So what we have learned applies to our lives today.
Exactly. All right. So Melissa Tagg, let's talk a little bit about her. She is from Iowa. Isn't that like the land of the corn, or I don't know, something like that?
It's heaven.
Heaven. I've never been to Iowa, but it sounds like a pleasant place.
There you go. Anyone who's a movie buff.
Yeah.
Iowa.
She's a USA Today bestselling author. She's also a Christie and Carroll Award-winning author. She writes swoony and hope-filled small-town contemporary romances. She's a former reporter. I'm not exactly sure what that means. I don't know if it's like in print or if she was like a, News 5, happening now type thing. So anyway, she's a former reporter and a current nonprofit marketing strategist. So if you can tell me how to sell like 1,000 books a month, that'd be great. Let's work on
this.
Yeah, let's figure out. I want to be able to quit the day job. She has taught at multiple national writing conferences, workshops, and women's retreats. She loves spoiling her nieces and nephews, watching old movies, daydreaming about her next fictional hero, and this what makes me think there's something sketch about her. She loves candy corn more than any other person you'll ever meet.
That's a little disconcerting, I'm not going to lie.
Yes, I don't trust anybody that likes circus peanuts or candy corn.
Now, I'll eat circus peanuts, but I think it's more for the nostalgia than anything else.
They definitely are nostalgia.
My great-grandma always used to have circus peanuts.
Really? Well, I think all grandmas did. They had those, and then, the little strawberry candies with like
I love those.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are total grandma candies.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So, but the funny thing is about candy corn, I don't like candy corn, but I do like the candy corn pumpkins. I don't know why, but they don't taste like candy corn.
Those little soft pumpkins?
Yeah.
I'm not as hateful towards those either now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Strange.
And I'm not sure. And I think they're both made out of the same candy corn, but the pumpkins are bigger. They're usually softer. Like the candy corns are a lot of times the candy corns are kind of waxy. Whereas I don't feel like the little pumpkins are. So anyway, I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, okay. So what did you think about the book? Did you like it?
I enjoyed the book.
Mm-hmm.
It was a fun. It was a fun read. It was a good read. Once I got into it, I would just keep reading and keep reading. That's usually a sign that I'm into the whole story. There were a couple of things I didn't care for in it, but I mean that's just my own.
Well,
it didn't ruin my enjoyment of the book. You're always going to find stuff.
Always, no matter how much you like a book, there's always going to be a little something about it. You're like,
And it's not a reflection on her writing. She's a good writer.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, I mean there are books that I love that I'm just like, I didn't really care for that part, so I don't really think that's a bad thing.
It took a couple of turns I wasn't expecting. There was a little more mystery to it, which was fine.
Yes. And that's kind of like because I'm not a romance person. I don't really like romance books. And even so, but I liked that this one wasn't really, there was a little bit of romance in it, but it wasn't like smack you in the face.
There was more to it. But I was thinking this is probably the most overtly romantic book we've read so far.
Probably, yeah.
As far as affection goes and Well,
Yeah.
that's kind of spoilery. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, there was nothing inappropriate about it at
No,
all.
no.
Yeah.
No.
So, but I didn't. I have read some where I was like, I just threw up in my mouth a little. Like when it comes to the romance, because I
So
don't.
true.
I do not like a lot of romance. I need little romance.
He doesn't.
So.
He doesn't like.
No, I don't. So I didn't feel like this was too. I thought it was written in a way that it wasn't annoying.
Yeah. It was tastefully done for sure.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to read about people smoochy, kissing,
Yeah.
and and all that. And I like that there was a little touch of a mystery to it. Again, not really suspense, but there was a little bit of a mystery in it. Maggie's sort of looking for a lost loved one, and Sydney just kind of wants to find her place in the world, and so
yeah. The overarching theme of the whole thing was belonging.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically,
and
just
I like
belonging
that. It was
to
just
someone, to something, to someplace. Just belonging.
Yeah. So take us into the book.
So, well, it opened with a letter Maggie was writing to Robert, I believe is his name.
Yes, Robert.
And we get more of an explanation on that later on. But then we go to Sydney, who is in Chicago. Sydney Rose is her name. She's a waitress and she's headed home, and
she sees like a sketchy looking man in the restaurant, and he's kind of watching her, and it kind of gives her the creeps.
This guy starts following her, and I had made a note.
And I'll be honest, I kind of thought her reaction to him was a bit over dramatic.
And this is where we differ. Not just me and him, but men and women.
Yeah,
is the thing,
and I totally get it. Yeah,
no, he gets it, but
that's kind of the way the world is anyway. Just in general, it's like anybody that you don't personally know, you just automatically assume they're like a serial killer that's out to kill you, and it's like, where's the trust? I understand we need to be careful, but do we really need to villainize everybody that looks at us?
I think men tend to be a little more trusting of strangers than women, just on principle.
Yeah, and I totally get it. It's a wacky world out there, so you do need to be cautious. Yeah,
but I did make a note, because like in the first 2 pages, because of her portion, because it mentioned running past a bakery she's obviously familiar with, because they sell this and that, and mentions all this stuff. And it's like, why are you going home if you think someone's following you? Go into the bakery where all the people are. So I had to make a note about that.
But people in books and movies are notorious for making stupid decisions.
It's true.
But then again, that's part of the fun of that's part of the plot.
If I thought someone was following me from work, home is the last place I think. I don't want them to know where I live.
I don't want some sketch to know where I live.
But this is a book.
So it's a book. We have to give them some creative license.
But he keeps following her, and then he grabs her arm. I'm like, dude, you're going about this all wrong. So she manages to injure him, hurts his knee, locks him out, and then finally he's able to get through to her and say, listen, I'm sorry, I'm a private investigator, clearly not experienced private investigator.
Clearly
an experienced investigator would know that is not how you introduce yourself to a woman that you've been researching.
He was right there in the restaurant. Why not, like, when she's about to leave, why not just present your PI badge or whatever and be like, hey, I'm a PI, I really need to talk to you about something.
Exactly.
While we're here with witnesses. That way, if I try to murder you, I have to take out the whole restaurant, So but then again, creative license
didn't go well. Did not go well.
Yeah.
He should not have done that.
No,
but he's new.
He's new.
And she finds out his name is Wilder Monroe, which is like one of the best names for a private investigator I've ever.
Yeah, well, and that's just a great character name, just in general.
It is. It's a good name. Yeah. It's a good name.
I know when I'm naming my characters, I like to choose unique names that are not like you'll probably won't find any Bills or Joes in my books unless they're like passing characters that don't really mean anything. Yeah, I like to have unique names.
Yeah. Not too unique though.
Yeah, and Wilder's. Yeah, like Xanthrozenia. It's like that's too unique. I just totally made that up. Yeah.
No, I'm sure there's a character out there somewhere, if not a poor child.
Probably.
But we're not going to get off on my soapbox that is the names people choose for their children.
Yes.
But yeah,
we're talking about you, Pillow Paltrow. Is it Gwyneth Paltrow's daughter that's named Pillow or somebody? I can't remember who.
I think she has kind of a weird name, but I don't remember. No. Apple?
Don't sue me.
Is she the one named Apple?
Oh, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
I don't remember.
Let's face it. That's a weird name.
I don't care that much anymore.
Other than a phone. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
I used to care about that stuff. I really don't anymore.
Rabbit trail.
So, yeah, I made a note that said, this is an entire lesson on how not to approach a woman. Do not.
Yes.
I don't care if you're a private eye or someone who's just interested in dating the girl. You never, ever, ever, ever grab a woman. Don't do it in general, but especially not if you're a stranger.
No, not a way to accomplish your goal.
It's not. You're not going to get anything you're after. So, but it comes out his name's Wilder Monroe, and he's been searching for her because there's a woman named Maggie who believes she's searching for her long lost granddaughter.
Yeah.
Her daughter was killed in an accident, but the granddaughter was never found.
Yeah.
And she was 2 at the time. So there's a whole web of mystery surrounding this. So through this, we learn that Sydney has been in the foster system for a long time, or she was in the fosters. Obviously, she's a grown adult. She's not in the system now, but up until the time she was 18, was never really adopted. Just stayed in the system, not for any specific reason. She says she overheard the social worker, I think, say some kids just aren't lucky.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
That's sad.
She also has kind of an adopted foster brother that Micah. And
he's kind of a bad seed kind of guy.
Well, I didn't even have to meet Micah. I immediately hated him, and that's just because of his name.
That's so unusual for you.
You have to understand. Of course, if you've listened to our podcast, it's probably been mentioned. I am a gamer. I like video games, and there's a character named Micah in one of my favorite video games, and he is the absolute worst. I know we've said people are the worst in other podcasts. This one's actually like a rung above Satan. Is what Micah is, and it's ruined the name for me forever. Like, I can't even stand it. I'm like, okay, I immediately hate Micah, but I'm going to try to be nice to him and give him the benefit of the doubt. It was really hard, though.
It was really hard to get past that.
It's really hard for me to work past that. I would feel the same way about Christopher from Gilmore Girls, except I knew too many Christophers before him, and I'm married to a Chris.
So you can't hate Chris too much.
I can't hate the name Christopher. But yeah, I hate him too. Anyway,
see, I don't hate Christopher Hayden in Gilmore Girls.
I do. Yay, we have a day.
Tell us how you really think.
We have a day, me and my friend, dedicated to directing our ire at Christopher Hayden from Gilmore Girls.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
That's hilarious.
We dubbed it International I Hate Christopher Hayden Day.
Well, I mean, he was going to come on our podcast, but I guess he may not now.
What a shame.
Actually, he's not even acting anymore. He's like a psychologist or something now.
Yeah.
The actor, not the character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's there to convince her to go with him to Maine to meet this woman.
To Muir Farms.
Muir Farms.
M-U-R.
Yes. Scottish last name.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where we get the segue into the perspective of Neil, who lives and works at Muir Farms. He is sort of... Maggie has... So we learn the letter Maggie was writing at the beginning was to her long lost love, Robert, whom she was engaged to when she was 19. Her parents would not let her marry him until after he came home from the war, which was the war in Vietnam. And
which I guess was kind of smart, but in a way that's kind of like...
I mean, I can understand it because she was very young and they had only known each other, I think, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
When he proposed. But
and it turned out to be to her favor because he wound up not coming home from the war. So she would have been a widow. Was that?
Well, is that in her favor though? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
She, but they didn't marry, but he never came home. So she writes letters to him and she winds up adopting
and
all
she
these
never
kids, just
married.
taking in all these kids. She's never married. She's taken in all these kids, one of whom is Diana, who she believes is the mother of Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
Or the mother of this long lost grandchild that she's been looking for.
Yeah. And she's this private investigator has been trying to find, and he's brought in 3 other girls besides Sydney, and they've all turned out to not be who they thought they were. And they, most of them had an ulterior motive. They see this farm, they're hoping to get their money or whatever. Yeah. So Sydney's their 4th, and the rest of the kids are very, we don't want her here.
Because it was long after, and she didn't have any others. Diana had already died when she adopted the others, I believe.
Yeah.
She had already been killed in the accident. So she has
Indy
and Lillian and Neil. Now Neil is from Scotland. Until he was 14, he lived in Scotland. And then he came over with his aunt and uncle, and then his aunt
they bailed on him.
Yeah, they just left without him.
I'm like, boy, those are some primo people. They'd come to visit Maggie. Apparently, Maggie and Neil's mom were pen pals.
Yes.
So Maggie invites them to the farm. They come in with Neil, and then run off and leave him. So Maggie,
they didn't, because his parents were killed in
a plane crash.
Plane crash.
Yeah.
Lots of crashes.
Yeah.
His parents were killed in a plane crash, and then his grandparents took him in. Well, they were older, so they passed away. So that left his aunt and uncle, and his aunt and uncle just really didn't want to be bothered with a 14-year-old boy, and that's how Maggie wound up with Neil. But she got both Lillian and Indy at younger ages. They were from the States, and it didn't really go into detail about how they came to live with her, but she legally adopted both of them, but did not legally adopt Neil.
Yeah, which was sort of a source of hurt for Neil.
Yes, and we got into that.
Family.
Yeah, we got into that later in the book. Not that she loved Neil less.
No, and he definitely was treated like part of the family.
Yes.
So he was not.
She calls him son and everything.
Yeah.
So
he just felt a little disconnected from the family, I think, because they all had the mirror name and he didn't.
Outside.
Yeah, and he always wanted to have that mirror name and never had it. So, which I totally get.
Of course.
Yeah.
But Muir Farm is having some issues.
They're having some financial issues.
Financial trouble. He's trying
to keep it afloat without Maggie's. No, he doesn't want Maggie to know how dire things are.
No, he's
trying to protect her.
His instinct is to protect. Lillian is a lawyer, and Indy is kind of an artist. She has her own shop. She's
kind of bohemian.
Yeah, she's a little bohemian.
Yeah, artsy, whereas Lillian's more conservative, more
private.
Yeah, more straight-laced.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that over there. Because I was keeping it for notes, but I'm at the end of my notes.
Well, I've got 3 pages of them, so.
So she, it's a big blueberry farm on the coast, is what.
And that sounds so interesting.
It does sound interesting.
I love
yellow house.
I love stories that are centered around like farms or and then like inns or bed and breakfasts and
So he. The problem is there's not a lot of money. He's keeping that to himself. He doesn't want to ask for help, even though he's helped both Indy and Lillian. He is the oldest of the 3 of them. Helped Indy get her shop going, helped Lillian pay for law school, all this stuff. And they keep trying to pay him back, and he keeps saying, no, I don't want your money.
He's the big brother. He's being the big brother, the man of the house.
He's being proud, but he's kind of being proud to his detriment.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. And it's going to cost like $15,000 to fix is it a harvester
our first time
tractor?
our first time to meet, it's a harvester.
It's a harvester.
He's got a harvester at the neighbor's house, and the mayor was
Yeah.
like, "Oh man, this is going to cost you $15,000."
Yeah.
Which is, I'm thinking, $15,000 is going to be cheaper just to buy a new one, but really a harvester is like really expensive. So so that's our first clue that that's when we first get the insight that things aren't all as well as they should be in Muir Farms.
Maggie doesn't really engage with the nearby town. It's a small town. She used to, but the longer the search has gone on for this long lost granddaughter, the more and more she's retreated.
Yeah.
Not that she's moody or grouchy or overly sad or anything.
No.
It's just it's opened her up to speculation, and she's shied away from that.
Plus, she's had a lot of disappointment in her life.
And she's had a lot of disappointment.
Because, and huge disappointment can really affect your life.
Yeah. So Neil is none too pleased with he and Wilder are like best friends, but he's none too pleased that Wilder has agreed to bring this girl back.
Yeah.
And Sydney is, I don't think she was planning to go, but technically her boss, I guess, best friend and boss.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I can't remember her name right now.
Yeah, I can't either. I don't think
that's horrible of me. That is horrible of me.
I don't think I wrote that down because she wasn't really she wasn't a
major character, but she was very nice, and she gave Sydney's working 2 jobs. She gave Sydney 2 weeks off. She said, "You should go." Micah was less thrilled, but he didn't like try to stop her. He was just like, "Can I crash at your place while you're gone?" I was like, "Yeah, sounds like a Micah to me." Like, that figures.
Just don't burn the place down.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I'm sniffling, y'all. My sinuses seem to be doing weird things.
Everything weird happens when we're podcasting.
Not usually the case with me, but so Sydney is there sort of reluctantly, but also out of a desire to see, like, could this be possible?
Yes, she wants to find her roots, her familial roots,
because she tracked down the woman who dropped her off at the adoption agency, or however she did it, a few years back. And her name was Carly Ann
Pickens.
Was it Pickens?
Pickness.
Interesting name.
Yeah.
But she was dying of something.
And I think Carly Ann was the name on her birth certificate as her mother. Am I right?
I don't think they found a birth certificate.
Oh, did they not? Okay.
No.
For some reason, she kind of. Yeah.
And Wilder can't find a birth certificate with that name on it anywhere.
Okay. Oh, that's right.
And no public records show she ever had a child.
Yeah, there's no records that she had a child. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So
Carly Ann.
And plus, Diana had called her daughter, whose name was Cynthia, Cindy, which isn't too different from Sydney. And Diana had red hair.
So there were some similarities.
And so does Sydney.
Yeah.
So there's
enough coincidences that makes her think, oh, maybe this is not a dead end.
She's just wanting to see if she belongs, if there's somewhere she belongs.
Yeah.
And despite the somewhat run-down state of the house when she gets there, she still kind of feels like she's in a fairy tale.
Yes.
And of course, that comes to an end when
they have a very interesting meet cute.
Yes, yes, they do.
Sydney and Neil.
She sort of, they just sort of walk in the house because that's Wilder's at home enough there to be like, oh, well, we'll just go in when no one answers.
Yeah.
So he goes in and he tells Sydney, he's like, there's a bathroom upstairs, to your left or whatever, if you want to go freshen up before we meet Maggie. And she's like, sure. And she hops up there, goes in the bathroom and shuts the door. And she's like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
And then the answer comes, that's a very good question.
Yeah.
It's Neil's in the shower. Oops.
And then she tries to storm out and the door won't
and the door's
open.
Of course, it's an older farmhouse, so it's quirky. And he had turned the water off, but he was still in the shower. And so it's a very,
Yeah, he has to get out wrapped in a towel and open the door so she can get out. And yeah, it's a funny. It's a funny
cute.
little cute meet.
I could see this being a Hallmark film, honestly,
Totally.
because yeah,
that's your classic
yeah,
Hallmark movie.
super cute.
First meeting. Yeah.
Yes. But Sydney's having trouble with all this because when she did meet Carly Ann, all Carly Ann would say was that, at least I did the right thing leaving you.
Yeah. Which you're left thinking, that's a horrible thing to say.
That's a horrible thing to say.
Mean?
To me, it means she was trying to protect her. But she was so sick, there was no real explanation.
Yeah. And she was dying at the time and so she and Sydney steals a picture off of her cabinet or whatever in the room. And so that's the picture. It's got Carly Ann, a guy, and who was the other woman? Diana. And then this guy,
standing between them, and it says JP.
Which spurs her into looking for, because she thinks this JP.
She said, well, maybe JP
father
is around this place too, and I could look for him.
Yeah, because she thinks it might be her father.
Neil is not too keen to have someone new here. He's mad at Wilder for bringing her out because Maggie's been through too many disappointments. He didn't want to see Maggie hurt. And the last girl that was there was absolutely there for ulterior motive reasons. She was out for money, and that hurt Maggie more than anything. So none of the three of the adopted children are on board with this, but they do try to be civil
for Maggie's sake
for a little bit. Doesn't really go well. But they're not outright mean. They're not outright hostile. They're just, she's left in no doubt as to,
she knows they don't want her there. Yeah.
They don't want her there, and she knows it. Maggie is incredibly welcoming, all but crying when she welcomes her there. She's just like, oh my gosh. So Maggie has Neil give Sydney a tour of the farm the next morning, even though he doesn't want to. But he does. And to her credit, she's out there like a trooper and willing to help him with his chores, which surprises him. She's afraid of the cow.
Yep.
Melba. She's afraid of Melba, which he finds amusing. It's a milk cow. It's not going to hurt you.
Like, cows are like the most docile animal on the planet other than a puppy. So, although their size can be daunting. So I guess I could understand it. I could understand a city girl being 2 years ago when I had a tree during some storms, some trees like fell on top of my house, had to have major repair work to the house. They brought in a structural engineer. My insurance company brought in a structural engineer, and he was from like New York, like upstate New York. Yeah. He came in from like upstate New York, and so he came in and did the work and everything. He was like, I have never seen a cow. Do you have cows around here? I'm like, turn around and just look a quarter, So he was like, I had to take him to like a little place not far from here that has cows so he could take pictures of the cows. Like, he was so excited to see. He had never seen a cow in real life.
That is so sad and adorable.
I know. And it was so hilarious because he was out there like taking pictures and everything, and like
the cows out there like, what in the world?
Yeah. And like he was like, do you think they would mind if I climb the fence and like pet them, and I was like, I was like, I wouldn't recommend climbing the fence.
No.
I was like, I don't think the cows would probably mind, but the people might. So anyway, it was so hilarious because he was so excited, and it's like, he was like, I can't wait to go home and show my kids. I was like, yeah, the kids.
That's so cute.
Yeah. And then he was like, so after we were done and everything, like, he was like, okay, now where's the horses? I want to see some horses. I was like, well, I know there are probably horses around, but I've never passed any places that had horses, so I didn't know where to take him. So yeah. Anyway, that's
funny.
Yeah.
But she
so there are people in the world that have never seen a cow in real life.
That amazes me.
I know.
That amazes me.
Anyway, yeah.
She opts to go explore the barn on her own rather than be near Melba. So Neil is halfway through milking, and he remembers he forgot to tell Sydney not to go in the loft because the boards aren't stable. They need repairing.
And of course, that's
Sure
the one
enough,
place she goes.
That's exactly where she went. She comes crashing through the ceiling above him, and he does kind of manage to catch her and cushion her fall. But
Yeah, and that's the point when the man gets to rescue the woman. That's the point when you know, okay, there's going to be a love interest here.
Yeah.
Like,
and they do.
Of course, we've all watched enough movies and read enough books. We know where the love interest lies before you even get into it. But
we knew.
It's still kind of fun.
Yeah. So they have a little bit of a moment there, and Neil's like, "Yeah, I don't have time for this," and says, you can. He said, "I'm sure you can find your way back on your own," and just kind of turns. But before he goes, he says, "Don't hurt Maggie. Just please don't hurt Maggie." Kind of under his breath, but she hears, and he leaves. But as he's leaving to go get some air, he realizes the generator is not working in the cooling room.
Yeah.
For the blueberries.
You're like, so he's like, this poor farm is falling apart.
He's just like, of course. So
what else can go wrong?
Sydney winds up going back to the house and finds Maggie there. Now, Indy, part of what interrupted the dinner last night is Indy came home and was like, I'm engaged. And we're going, because no one knew she was dating anybody.
Yeah.
But Maggie's all excited for her. And Neil's like, who? Some guy named Bennington. Which is also
that's
quite the name.
I just visualize like a nerd guy with black glasses with tape at the that's kind of my
either
visual,
a nerd or
a brokerage banker
was yuppie type. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So when Sydney gets back to the house, Maggie's like, well, let's go up to the attic, and that's where she shows Sydney her wedding dress. That she had, I guess, either made or bought to wear when she married Robert. And of course, Robert never came back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Sydney realizes how much hurt Maggie's had in her life. And she understands now why Neil had said, don't hurt Maggie. Up until then, she had only been thinking about her own feelings on the line. Yeah. But this kind of opens up all the possibilities of how many other people could get hurt. And she feels awful. Sydney's a really, really nice person, a very empathetic person. And she doesn't want to hurt Maggie. She just wants to belong somewhere. And she really, really hopes it's with Maggie. At this point, I think she's really hoping that Maggie is her grandmother, that she is the long lost granddaughter.
Yeah.
But they have a nice moment. And for 2 nights in a row, Sydney is catching Neil sneaking out of the house.
Sneaking out, from her bedroom window.
Where is Neil going?
And it's and you don't really know where he's going for several chapters. So there's a little mystery there too, and like, what's he up to? Yeah.
So she eventually follows him and finds out what he's been up to, and
wearing her bathrobe. She goes out in the freezing cold in the middle of the night to chase after him wearing her bathrobe and slippers.
Yes, which he finds very amusing.
Yeah.
But he shares his hopes with her, and that's I won't get into that because I feel like that's a little spoilery.
A fun little goal, a life goal of his.
And Neil's just kind of got the weight of the world on his shoulders. He's worried about keeping the farm afloat. He's worried about Maggie getting hurt. He's worried about this whole fiance thing with his sister. And he just, he has issues with everything. There's a neighboring farm, the Carter farm, that's wanting the land.
Yeah.
And he hasn't even told Maggie that they're offering.
Yeah, and finally, the owner of the farm, he keeps approaching Neil, and Neil keeps just saying, "No, we're not interested." Well, finally, the guy's like, you don't even. This is not even your farm. You don't own this farm. So he goes directly to Maggie and kind of opens up this can, and that's sort of where some of the drama starts.
Yeah, that's when some of the drama starts. Yeah. And also a little bit when Lily and Indy take Sydney to a town meeting, which also made me think Gilmore Girls. It's like,
I
it's
know.
one of those.
Yeah.
What's Taylor Dozy up to?
And some of my favorite scenes in Gilmore Girls were those town hall meetings.
Oh, yeah.
The town hall meetings
Fantastic.
and then the dinners at Emily's get house.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the best things.
So she goes to a town meeting where I think it's like 45 minutes going on about one small issue.
It's,
like,
yeah,
that
it's
sounds
such
about right.
a small town thing. Yeah.
But she gets
she kind of tells Sydney how it is.
well, Lillian gets in Sydney's face because Sydney gets, and through no fault of her
No,
own,
she
Sydney
didn't
gets
she gets sucked in by the town newspaper
the town
guy,
reporter who's digging
for a story.
He's technically harmless.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any ill intentions.
It's just a small town, and the only thing he ever gets to report on is the winner of the best pig contest.
Yeah.
So he's looking for a story.
Yeah.
This new girl comes into town, and he thinks, there could be a story there. So Sydney doesn't know that she's,
yes,
being is a pawn in his and so when
Lillian
sees her talking to him, she's like, "Listen here, girl."
Yeah. No, we're not gonna mess with him. And she's a little too rough on her, but I also understand where she's coming from. She wasn't there to see how it all came about.
Yeah. And plus it's just a product of her not wanting Sydney
she doesn't
there. She doesn't
want Sydney there. She doesn't want Maggie hurt. She's just,
she's like, we're tired of this. We want these people to stop coming in and disrupting our life. Yeah.
And then they're supposed to have a party to meet Indy's fiance.
Yes. And
then Indy's an hour late and he doesn't show.
Yeah.
No Bennington.
So we don't like Bennington.
No, we don't like Bennington either.
It did not take long to not like Bennington.
But Sydney helps prep for the fall festival, the big town fall festival, baking and setting up the booth and everything.
You get to see her make her first pie.
She makes her first pie, and she carries. She really impresses Lillian because she keeps carrying all this stuff around, and because she's a waitress.
Yeah.
Lillian's like, I don't even know how she does it. She said she had 5 earlier. I don't know how she does it.
Yeah, I don't know how. Well, I guess you could do 2 on each arm and then hold one in your hands. So.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like, if you've ever been to like La Fiesta or La Huerta with a decent sized group of people,
they have like 10 plates.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do
Maybe
it.
Not 10, but yeah, they have a lot of them.
If they've been in the business long enough, I guess you just learn how to do it.
You learn how to get them all the plates in one trip.
But at the fall festival, Wilder has tracked down someone who is Carly Ann's stepbrother. Carly Ann does not have any blood relatives, which makes DNA testing impossible. Mm-hmm. But he's tracked down a stepbrother, so Sydney meets him there, and that does not go well. He leaves mad because Wilder sort of insinuates a few things.
Yeah.
Wilder needs some more training.
Yeah, Wilder needs some social skills.
But
training.
Him and Lillian were hilarious.
They were.
Honestly, because
Lillian did not like him.
Lillian does not like Wilder. Methinks the lady doth protest too much.
Yes.
I'm sure that's part of one of the second or third books.
Yes, I'm wondering if there's a love.
It's some sort of hate to say.
Yeah.
Wilder likes torturing her too much for it to be anything else.
Exactly. Yeah. There's got to be something there.
So that does not go well. And Maggie remembers that Carly and Diana went to a summer camp when they were younger. And they find the website for the camp and find a John Pettinger, which is, JP, because Wilder's found no one with the initials JP.
And in a small town, like a JP cannot be this hard to find.
Yeah. So she and Sydney, she and Sydney go to visit him, and there's no indication that he knew any girl, either of the girls, in any way other than friendship.
Yeah. And this picture, when Sydney left Chicago to come to Muir, she couldn't find the photograph.
Yeah, she could only remember the photograph.
Yeah, but she couldn't find it to take it with her. So she tells her brother, like, while you're staying here, if you find that picture, let me know.
Micah's supposed to be on the lookout for this photo.
Yeah, which he's a slacker. He's just looking for his next
for
his next drug fix.
She's been trying to stay in contact with him, and he'll text her every once in a while, but he hasn't really been conversing with her much.
And I would love to see a redemption arc for him too.
It would be nice, but I don't really care. So after that camp, Maggie faints.
Yeah,
she's faints.
So disappointed, and
so that's
kind of when you kind of get the indication that something might be going on with her.
Yeah, but she also faints after Sydney's so emotional, so upset that all this did not pan out. She sort of let slip.
Yes,
that the farm's in a little bit of trouble financially,
and there's a little bit of that's when the drama really. Yes, because you gotta when you have two couples that are on the brink of falling in love, you gotta have some drama that keeps them apart. Yeah.
So of course, when she recovers, she insists on stopping to eat somewhere. She won't go to the doctor.
Yeah.
And then they go home and rest. So Neil's already mad that she didn't take her to the hospital. But then he gets mad that Sydney let it slip. So he's not pleased with her.
Yeah. And then Maggie kind of comes down on him. Yeah. Like, this is my farm. How dare you not tell me?
Yeah.
In that loving, it wasn't mean, just like in that loving, motherly sort of way.
But she's definitely mad. Like,
she's
not
made
upset.
It
she's
known
mad.
that she's mad.
Yeah. So he feels bad, and he feels
because he's been subsidizing the farm with his own savings.
Yes. He feels bad, and he's irritated with Sydney for letting it slip, and he's about to lay into her for doing that, and she starts crying. So of course he's like, well, I can't lay into her now.
Yeah, right.
She's crying over him being mad and Maggie fainting and JP not panning out, and so he gives her.
There's too much going on to open that can right now.
They have a second moment that Wilder interrupts, and
was that when they went down to the pantry?
Yeah, that's when they're in that pantry, and Wilder interrupts that. So Neil flees from the house and winds up staying on Wilder's houseboat. Like, dude, come on.
Yeah,
you gotta handle this stuff better.
Exactly.
But he's not the only one that's in for rude shocks, because Micah turns up at the farm
out of nowhere,
and they have a talk, him and Sydney, but it doesn't end well. He's kind of trying to ask her for money, but she's also like, I'm not here for money. Yeah. We're not doing this. So he gets mad, but he does hand her the photo. He found the photo, and walks off. And before he leaves, he says, by the way, it's JR, not JP. And she's like, wait, what? And she looks at the back of the photo, and sure enough, there's just this little tail that she had missed, faded. And it's the
so their search parameters kind of broadened.
Their search parameters were incorrect. So it's JR, and that unveils a whole new mystery and twist, and that's spoiler territory. We won't get into that, but I think this was a fun read. It was a good book. There were only a couple of things. The ending, I felt like I could have gotten a little more of Diana's, because there was some of Diana's stuff that didn't get revealed, and I felt like it should have been, but I'm not the one writing the book.
Yeah. And one thing I've noticed in reviews that really drive me because I tend to read reviews after I read a book just to see what people, and some of the bad reviewers, like when I see readers that say, well, I hated the way the book ending, it was a cliffhanger, the books, they didn't finish the book. Well, it's not a cliffhanger if there are 3 books behind it. You know, I get that each book needs a certain amount of closure.
Yeah.
But if there's multiple books in the series, I don't consider it a cliffhanger. Move on to the next book, Ethel. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So
that is true.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want more of the story, you can read the second and third books, and I probably will. I just felt like, considering the subject matter, since it was so closely linked with Sydney, there could have been a little bit more. But again, I didn't write the book. I'm not in charge. The only other thing that kind of took me out of it was there was a short piece in there that was all text messages, and I don't know if it was my particular mood at that point, but I had trouble.
Yeah, me too. I kind of skimmed.
I had trouble following along. I wanted to follow along, but I had trouble following what was going on.
Yeah.
But that was just a very brief, maybe 3 paragraphs.
Yeah, it was very short. Yeah.
And again, like I said, it could have just been my mood at the time.
Yeah.
But I liked Neil. A little bit of a Scottish burr to his voice, and that's always a winner.
I would like to hear him talk.
Yeah, it's probably just a mild.
I wonder if he has that Scottish brogue.
Probably not too much, because I think he's 34, so
and he's been in the United States
20 years, most of his life. He's been in the U.S.
You probably kind of lose.
It's faded.
You're not living with people that speak.
It's
like
faded,
that.
but he can probably turn it up when he wants. Most people with an accent can.
Yep, we sure can.
Anyway, so I pretty much liked all the characters. I liked, except Micah. Didn't like him. Sorry, Micah. You're just not on my list. Your name has ruined it for me.
He was not your. So if he had been named Tim, would you have liked him a little bit better?
Probably.
So
It's
Melissa
just not
Tagg,
the name for me anymore.
Melissa Tagg, you need to republish your book and take the name Micah
Just
out.
change his name.
Melanie is not happy.
Just change his name.
And we don't like it when Melanie's not happy.
That's right. Melanie's not happy. No one's happy.
That's right. Yeah, I really enjoyed the book too.
I think it touched on, everyone wants to belong.
Yes, that was kind of the overarching theme of the book was finding where you belong.
Yeah, and it was interesting in that, the 3 other children in, I say children because they're all grown, in Maggie's life they've all found where they belong, but they weren't born to it.
Yeah.
So they've all found their own way of belonging. They belong to Maggie. They belong in varying degrees to the farm, to the land. Neil the most, I think. I think he just loves that land and that farm.
Yeah.
Not necessarily more than the girls, but I think he has a tie to it.
Yeah.
That they have, but they don't feel as strong a pull. Because Lillian has her law practice, and Indy has her art and her store.
So that's kind of his.
So they're
place.
I think they're all just tied to that area in varying degrees, and they've found where they belong. But obviously, they're going to search for other things. I imagine the next 2 books are about Lillian and Indy.
Yeah, it kind of focuses on their stories,
and we'll probably unfold a little more of the mystery surrounding Diana's death, because there was another car involved with it, but they never found the other car. And where did the granddaughter go? Was she swept out to sea? Was she taken? Where did she go? No one knows.
Yeah. So I'm sure that'll be focused on at some point in one of the books.
That's my guess.
Yeah.
But it was a fun read, and I could absolutely see it as a Hallmark movie.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if you like stories with an adoption arc to it, this is definitely is something that you should look into, because there's not lot of stories out there that focus on adoption. Of course, that's
No,
not the
not a whole
main
lot.
focus on it.
No.
But it's kind of fun to see that dynamic of, even if you don't know who your family is or you're not with your blood family, you
Yeah.
can still find a place to belong in
Yeah.
the world. There are people that will take you in as your own. And
Of
Maggie,
course.
you know, and that's one thing I kind of loved about Maggie. She basically gave him the farm and was like, you know, he had full reign of the farm, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. He was running the farm on his own.
Yeah, totally on his own. And again, kind of kept Maggie out of some things that he should have
That he
drawn her
shouldn't have.
into.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, he didn't do it out of malice. He did it as a way of protecting his mother figure, the woman that he loved.
Yes.
So you can kind of see why he did it, even though he
Oh,
shouldn't
yeah.
have done it.
I understand
you
why
can
he
see
did
his
it,
heart
just-
in it. Yeah.
It shouldn't have been done that way.
Yeah.
But we all make mistakes. You
we
know?
do. Yeah. So
It's just the way it is.
yeah. Yeah.
We're all human.
So this was a fun little read. It
was.
you know, it was not a heavy read. Like if you're looking
No.
for a read that's not heavy, that's not it's honestly, it's not real deep.
No. And it doesn't need to be. It's
it's just a good, fun entertainment read.
Anything involving depth is dealt with in again, like the belonging, the want to belong, the need to belong.
Yeah, and that's
somewhere.
not to say, and now maybe there's going to be more depth in book 2 and in book 3. I felt like, you know, of course, the book 1 in a series is always sort of you're setting the scene, you're setting the story. So there may be more depth, but I'm fine with books that don't have a lot of depth. I like books that have a lot of depth, but I also like just good, fun reads that you can just kind of,
You're just not going to need. There's not any real deep philosophical question involved in this book. It's just
this would be a
good
beach
book
read.
about emotions and the human need to belong somewhere.
Yeah.
And just the ability to kind of follow your heart.
Yeah.
For lack of a better phrase. I know that sounds trite, but
kind of cliche, but you know.
But you know what? Cliches are cliches for a reason.
Exactly.
They're usually true.
Yeah, they're usually true, and we respond. You know, so yeah.
Very, very true.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. So you think you might read the rest of the series?
I think I might. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when, but yeah.
Me either. Yeah. I'm just not, and I know we've talked about this on the. I'm not a series, you know, and even if I love a book, I just don't usually complete series because, first of all, I just get bored with series. I get bored with the same characters. I get bored with the same location. But part of the reason too is because there's so many books out there that I want to read. You know, there's so many books. There's so many new authors that I want to try. I just don't want to get stuck in a series. And I know there's a lot of people out there, like if there's 40 books in a series, they just want to read they want to binge all 40 of them.
All of them.
Yeah. And there's probably 2 authors in the world that I have read every book they've read, or every book that they've written. So
really,
yeah. Mary Higgins Clark, I've read every book that she's written. And Catherine Spencer, her real name is Anne Canadeo. She writes series under both names, but she wrote a series of books with Thomas Kincaid, the painter Thomas Kincaid. Yeah. There's it's the Cape Light series, and there's 19 books in the series. I found the book years ago, and I have read every book in that. That's probably the only series other than Mary Higgins Clark. And Mary Higgins Clark, most of her books are standalones. Yeah. And in her later writing years, she did write a couple of a series. She did write a series. But yeah, Catherine Spencer's the only author that I think that I've read every book in the series. So yeah.
Wow.
I'm just not a big series person.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
I like series, but
so what you thinking for our next read? Have you thought about it yet?
I've thought about it, but I haven't decided on anything.
You always have a harder time picking than I do.
A hard time.
I've got a list longer.
I'm good at making decisions.
Yeah, I've got a list a mile long of books and authors I want to read at some point. So from my standpoint, we've got enough podcast episodes to last us till Jesus comes back. But yeah,
Oh, that could be next week.
yeah, that could, yeah, the way things are going, it could be next week. Yeah, yeah. Well, and another thing about the book is, it is marketed as Christian fiction, and there are some faith elements to it, but it's not one of those that's like deep theology. There's not a lot
Right.
of yeah, and I can kind of go either way with it. Like when it comes to Christian fiction, one of my least favorite things is when there's some skill that comes with writing Christian fiction that I don't like when they preach at you through the Christian fiction. You know what
That's
I'm
fair.
saying?
Yeah.
And when you read Christian fiction, if the book is Christian fiction, there's going to be at least one reviewer that said it's too preachy, and we all know what that means. That means a non-believer has gotten hold of a Christian fiction book and it mentioned the word God without a profanity behind it. That's what that review means. Yeah, yeah. So, but I have read a few books, Christian fiction books, where I was like, do you have to preach at me? Yeah, yeah. There's a skill to twining faith elements into a book in a way,
a fiction book,
that it's pleasing. You know, like and again, everyone's different. If you're different than me, that's fine. I just don't like it when characters constantly are trying to get people to get the other character saved, and they're constantly, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's too overt.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get it.
Well, how do you feel about it? What's your...
No, I mean, I understand. I mean, it's just like, you're not going to win someone over. You're not going to get someone to go to your church usually by just hounding them to go to church.
No. That's a way
there's
to
a
turn them
balance.
off. Yes.
There's a balance. You're not going to win someone over to Jesus by just constantly harping on them. Stop harping on them.
Yeah. That'll turn them off.
Pray for them. Be an example.
Yes.
Speak to them about it, but don't just...
Don't beat them over the head with your Bible and then wonder why they don't want to get saved. Yeah,
it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Usually it doesn't work. I mean, I guess you could browbeat someone into doing it, but
there might have been instances.
Would you really want to do that? That's not good.
Yeah.
I don't think that was
the
intention. Otherwise, why would we have free will? What's the point?
Exactly. Yeah. So like the last book that we read, I felt like that had a more overt, because the character in the book, Grace, A Strange Disguise, the character,
needed to.
Yeah, and it
needed to. The subject matter warranted it. This subject matter didn't really warrant a huge, because it was just about finding your place in the world. No one was searching for faith.
No,
the characters already had.
They already had it. Yeah.
They were just searching for different things.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a book with really strong faith elements, this may not be the book for you, but there is enough of it in there that you know where they all stand.
Yes.
So for me, I really liked it because I'm just generally not a fan of really overt, let me talk about Jesus with you. Like sometimes I just feel like it's too...
It can be too much.
It can be too much. Yeah. Yeah. But Christine Dillon did a very good job of it in Grace and Strange Disguise. So,
yes, she did.
Yeah, it was more overt, but you could tell
it fit with... There's just a balance to strike.
And it depends on the nature of the book. That was the nature of that book. So, so there, this had a very quaint small town feel to it, which always draws me to a book. I'm always more drawn to a book that has... sort of the small town feel to it. So yeah, I highly recommend this book. I think most people would enjoy it. Yeah,
I agree.
So you don't know what book we're going to do next?
I don't.
Okay, it's Melanie's turn to pick.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so y'all will just have to tune in and find out.
Surprise.
Yeah. You're going to have to let me know, though, girl.
I know.
As soon as you can.
I know.
Because you know me. I need to start reading as soon as possible.
I'm a bad person.
No, you're not. You just...
I'll decide. I'm just not good at making decisions.
Yeah.
I never have been.
Yeah. So,
but
anyway, so yeah. Anything else you want to say? This is probably our shortest one.
This might be our shortest one.
Which is kind of good. We'll kind of see. Sometimes I feel like our longer. Again, I am a person who likes long content. Like I like to watch and listen to longer content. So this will be kind of a little to see maybe if we get more listen time.
Yeah,
I feel like there's a lot of people that are daunted by longer content.
We tend to go on and on. We're sorry.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. so this will give us a little bit of playtime to see, like, maybe we'll see how a little bit shorter content works for us. So
we'll give it a whirl.
Yeah, we'll give it a whirl. So, all right. Well, I think we are going to draw this to a close. I think Melanie's going to go out with family and continue the birthday celebration. So
we're going to go bar hopping.
Yep.
I was going to do that with a straight face, but it's not going to work.
And everybody that knows her's going.
Just I can't do the straight face thing.
Can't do. And see, I'm the total opposite. My friend Janice and I, years ago, this is when we were teenagers, maybe early 20s. She had us convinced that she had gone on vacation, and she came back. She was like, "Oh my gosh, guys, I'm going to be on." I think it was the Wheel of Fortune. I don't think it was Jeopardy. She's kind of like I am. She's too dumb to be on Jeopardy. So sorry, Janice, but you know it's true. I think it was the Wheel of Fortune. She was like, "Oh my gosh, guys, I was on vacation and I'm going to be on the Wheel of Fortune, and it's airing this week." And so we were like, "Oh, you are not. You're lying." She was like, "No, seriously." Like she
had you convinced.
She finally got us convinced. Yeah, and she and I are both very good at, like, we can lie to each other and make each other. So we, like, literally, she was like, "It's going to air on, Thursday night or whatever night it was." And so we literally, like,
everyone tuned in.
We went to our friend Becky's house.
Party.
We threw a party. We had a cake, like, and she knew we were doing it. She was so she went along with this, and so, like, we got there, like, Wheel of Fortune was going to come on at 7:00, so we were like, "Oh my gosh, Timmy!" Like at 7:00 when Wheel of Fortune comes on, she goes, "Oh, by the way, guys, I'm lying. I'm not going to be on." But we still had a party.
That's the way to get a party.
Yeah, exactly. So
wow.
Yeah, so
I like it.
You don't have her poker face.
I can on occasion, but this wasn't an occasion. Yeah.
Well, plus you got the whole, some people are listening on Spotify and they don't, they can't really see your face.
No.
Melanie is not a bar hopper. Let's not get that rumor started. She's not a bar hopper.
Melanie can't even drink alcohol. I've tasted a few, but I cannot. I legitimately cannot drink alcohol. So bar hopping would be, I mean, Shirley Temples.
Yeah.
You make me a Roy Rogers. That's about it.
There you go. But, plus, you don't have to wake up with a headache the next day. So,
true.
Yeah.
True.
So,
yeah.
All right. Well, there was something else I was going to say. If you want to follow us on social media, we're on Facebook and Instagram at Bookish Introverts Podcast. If you want to email us, we're at bookishintrovertspodcast@gmail.com. Coming up in the new year, I think we're going to have in some of our podcast episodes, I think we're going to do a couple of book giveaways to the listeners. So we're going to give away some paperback books of some of the books we read. So
I like it.
Yeah, so I thought that might be fun to do that. I think at some point in the new year, we're going to start bringing on. We'll probably do a few more. We may do a few more author interviews. Our friend Jessica is going to come on. We're gonna there's a specific book that she loves. Melanie has been wanting to read it. I'm kind of on it. I'm not quite sure at this point. So Jessica has said I've got to come on when you guys talk about that. So we're going to have our first third guest on.
Guest,
at that.
guest reader.
Yeah, and then maybe at some point during 2025, other than her, we may bring on a couple of remote guest readers.
Okay.
So we
Cool.
got a few little things that we're going to play with and maybe kind of see how it works.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a little bit leery about having a third person on a chat. I think Jessica will be fine, but I'm kind of leery about it at third because I like to talk, and if we have a third person on, that gives us less talk time. We have to share the airwaves.
Like, I have to speak.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but I know readers do like listening, especially they do like listening and like seeing their favorite authors on. So
yeah.
So we definitely are going to have. I've actually gotten a couple of authors. My friend Shannon Work, she writes clean secular fiction, and she does sort of mystery suspense, sort of kind of like Mary Higgins Clark. She has said she'd like to come on, so we'll probably have her on at some point. So I've got a few ideas.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And I do think we're probably at some point, I think maybe for Christmas, I don't know if we'll do all Christmas reads, but I think we're going to do at least one famous author during the Christmas. I'm not exactly who that'll be.
Okay.
I kind of want to do. There's a couple of things I want to focus on in the new year. We've kind of done the podcast differently the way we originally talked. The way we were going to do it in the beginning was we were going to do about 10 or 15 famous authors, because I feel like it's easier to draw people into your podcast if it's authors that people know and recognize their names. But we kind of didn't do that. We kind of which I do want to talk about unknown authors. I really, being one myself, I really do have a passion for letting people know that there are a lot of great books out there that aren't famous, written by famous people.
Absolutely.
So I think I do want to maybe focus on some more famous authors in 2025, along with some of the smaller named authors, and I also want to focus on some male authors. I feel like
we haven't had a lot of those. I think we've had 2.
Yeah, we've had 2 so far, and I feel like male authors are kind of the unicorn. And I feel like most of the reading demographic in Christian fiction is probably mostly women, but I do know there are a lot of men. There probably are some men. So anyway, I kind of want to highlight some male authors, whether Christian fiction or just clean fiction. But I feel like both of those are kind of dominated by women, which is fine, But yeah, so that's one thing I'd like to focus on in 2025 is maybe getting a few more male books authors to talk about some of their books. So anyway, so that's kind of what's coming up in the new year, and maybe what's coming up in the next month for the Christmas holidays. So we are going to get off here and let you guys go, and
thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, tuning in and listening,
watching us, listening to us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we're not well-known people, so we appreciate you giving us a chance. And for those of you that keep coming back, we thank you. For those that are listening to us for the first time, we hope you liked us and that you'll come back.
Yes, we hope that very much. Yeah. So you guys have fun. I promise I'll try to come up with something soon to read for the next one. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Bookish Introverts podcast, where together we explore the worlds within the pages. Until next time, stay bookish.